Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to WeatherBrains episode number 801. This is the pre-show. This is for the 24th day of May, 2021. My name is James. This is the marvelous time of the program where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and sometimes we say outrageous things. And we are on the air everywhere. It's the Monday night weather party, and we're glad you're with us. So let's see if we can get some embed codes going here, some guests invited, the regulars invited, and we'll get this thing started. Hope you had a good weekend. Weather is calming down as the death ridge has set in down here in the southern states. The action shifting up to the Great Plains, where they've got some severe weather issues going on this evening that might affect Jen and her ability to be on the show tonight. She's got some affiliate radio stations that are out in Kansas, where they've got some severe weather. But let's get everybody on here and get this thing happening, get it going. 801 shows, and they said this wouldn't last. What did they know? All right, let's see if I can make it all happen. There's Aubrey and Bill and Nate. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got to get Jen. These things used to come up automatically on the invitations, and now they don't. All right, I think that's everybody. Okay, they are invited, so we can get the show underway. Show on the road. So I can speak again in public beginning June 1st. Don't know if I remember how to do that. I have not been in a school, a public talk since March of 2020, well over 1 year. Everything has been on Zoom and Google Meet. So we'll see if I remember how to do that. Wow. So this fall, I'll be back in the schools again. I'm for those that don't know, I'm typically in 1 to 2 schools a day. And, shifting everything to online, it's okay, but it's not the same as having, 300 kids in a gymnasium. As long as they're in elementary school, I will light them up like a Christmas tree. I mean, those are my people. It's harder to do that virtually. So anyway, I'll start meandering back out in the world. They're letting us out of the cage, which is kind of exciting. This TV station here is still closed to the public. And the other thing that I do, I typically have kids or families in here Friday evenings that are interested in weather. And they have the chance to come in. We'll talk with them, show them around, let them watch the news in the studio. And I kind of miss that we have launched a lot of careers over the years from the Friday afternoon tours, as we call it. We've had none of that. And most of the employees here have been working at home. It's like a ghost town here. So I think the employees come back on June 1st. Jen, we're talking about the return to normalcy here.
Yes. Can you hear me okay? I switched spaces.
Yes, you are in a studio Q here. Studio T, Tornado,
right.
Or whatever.
Everybody's getting back to the studio. You've been there for a while though, right?
Yeah, I knew they'd do this. They brought me back right before March. They wanted me here during the tornado season. So,
right.
And so I was here. I've been here since March, but the other employees will come in June 1st, and they're letting us go out into the world and speak again in public.
Oh, good.
So
good.
Don't know if I remember how to do that. It's kind of scary.
Like riding a bike.
That's right.
Yeah. So you got some tornado action, Jen?
I do.
So we're going to cut live to her, James. Anytime she goes dark tonight, you're to cut live to her.
I know he's dying for me to do that, but
I want to hear a pro in action.
Oh my goodness! Well, why are you listening to me?
Well,
I forgot what I was doing. There's not been tornadoes in Kansas in such a long time. that I was like, what am I doing right now? But no, it looks like things have kind of poo-pooed out. There was some good rotation.
About the 100 chasers that were on that storm in West Garden City.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to watch them all just flocking to it when you're tracking them on the APRS.
I know.
I must have 100 pictures of that.
I know.
that thing.
Yeah, Selden got hit. They had damage and at least one injury, and that is
Wow.
northwest. Well, it's west of Hill City, near Hoxie. So it's just a little town there. There were tractor trailers and a down silo. So it looked like it was pretty formidable strength there. Things have kind of eased a little, which is good.
Good.
Okay. Well, good. I think it's going to rain here for the next 20 years. So the death ridge has set in, which is fine with me. We've had enough. All right, let's see here. It is 7:59.
We may not have anybody on the show tonight. It may just be us four.
Michael, can you hear us okay?
Oh, Michael's here. Good.
I'm here. I can hear you fine. Can you hear
There we
me?
go. Yes.
Yeah, you sound great.
We have
Loud
a
and
show.
clear.
Good.
Loud and clear.
Because I'm out here in rural New Mexico and our internet went down when we got home last night.
Oh,
And,
goodness.
we have more coyotes than people in our neighborhood. So I was a little concerned, but so far so good.
What part of New Mexico?
Is that where the coyote chases the roadrunner in New Mexico?
I think that was in Monument Valley in Arizona.
Oh, okay. I knew it was out there somewhere. I mean,
Out here somewhere, yeah.
if the coyote didn't buy that junk from Acme, he'd be better off. You know,
That's right.
First in the
he
phone.
buys the same junk. It comes in and it never ever works.
And they
He'll
still
paint that-
sell it.
Yeah, he'll paint that black hole in the rock, and the roadrunner goes right through that thing. He comes in and just flattens himself. And I worried about him being hit in the head with all those anvils. I mean, that guy got pounded with anvils. Yeah. All right, let's get this thing started here. Nobody knows what we're talking about. I can just see.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Can't be shown on television today. It's too violent.
Yeah, really. I don't think.
I was about to ask if you can even show that show anymore.
No.
I
Probably
don't
not.
know. Not with all those anvils. No. All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
WeatherBrains is brought to you by Midland Weather Radio. Every home, school, and business should have a Noaa Weather Radio, the official voice of the National Weather Service. And the AMS Weather Band.
Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band. The AMS Weather Band is a global community of weather enthusiasts dedicated to learning and sharing their love of science. Visit amsweatherband.org to learn more and join the band today.
WeatherBrains episode number 801 for May 24th, 2021. After the longest show in history last week, which was a really good show if you didn't hear it, we are back. And let me just go right to Kim. This is awesome. Kim has a special guest in her studio. Kim, introduce us, please.
For those who haven't gotten to meet this one before, this is little Lily McLean. And I wanted you all to just get to say hi for a minute. I'm going to be taking her to try to continue coaxing her, convincing her that sleep is more exciting, but she really wanted to say hi to all of you first.
Well, we're
So
glad.
cute.
Come on, Mom. It's still daylight outside. I mean,
Oh yeah, you can't go to bed when it's daylight.
Yeah, the party's about
Right?
to start. Come on.
I know. I really feel like that's not helping. I think that the fact that it's still light outside, she's like, no, what? No.
she's looking at you like you're crazy, Mom. I mean, come on. I mean,
Go
we
to
got
bed
a
with
long
the
way to go
chickens.
here.
What is this?
Yeah.
I know.
So
Yeah.
she's how old now?
7 months.
Wow.
Wow.
Goodness
Mhm.
We're
gracious.
heading off to college before you know
Yeah. You blink and they'll be.
it.
Well, what's the name of that horrible song? But Butterfly Kisses. I mean, have y'all ever heard that song?
I've heard
Yeah.
of it.
You don't want to hear that song.
Okay.
If you have a girl growing up, you don't want to hear that song. It will make you. It's making me cry thinking about it. So,
Mhm.
well, that's awesome. Well, Kim, she's welcome to stay for the whole show.
Well,
you
we'll
can go
see.
get
She
a
might
nap. We'll
last.
just put her on the mic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, we'll get her
So-
opinions. It'll be great.
Exactly. So North of Kim, Jen, we have some tornado action in Kansas this evening. You've been working.
That's right. Yeah, things got a little bit active. I have a station out in Hays, Kansas, so I was watching that. There was one tornado warning out toward Gove County that gets into their listening area. So I got the dust off of my tornado hat here and had to get back on the air. I haven't done a lot of coverage in Kansas for a while, so I hopped on. But there was a tornado that did cause some damage northwest of that area in Selden. So I've been seeing some of the reports coming out, local storm reports. There was at least one injury reported, a silo down, damaged buildings. So there was a pretty big tornado out there. So I'm not sure the extent of the damage. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But it looks like so the tornado threat has eased a little. Still a few severe thunderstorm warnings, but I'm hoping. Bill is not hoping this. He wants me to get on and talk and do tornado coverage live on the show, but I think hopefully we're a little done here.
We would love to simulcast your tornado coverage. That would be like slightly awesome. That'd be the first time ever. Is that a Penn State hat I'm seeing here?
It is.
We are.
Penn State. Oh. Fine on state.
See? My soundboard has them all in here.
That's awesome.
Wow. I mean, this gets your blood pumping right here. Come on now. It's going to be football season before you know it.
Auburn opens with them too, don't they?
What?
I think Auburn opens with Penn State, don't they?
Oh,
Am I crazy?
I don't know.
Am I imagining that?
That's like an eternity away. It's like
that's right.
So, Aubrey, how are you in the lovely Shenandoah Valley?
Finally, very excited that we got a 1/4 inch of rain today. This is big news for us. We're not in a drought just yet, but I have a feeling we're headed that way if we don't get some major changes. So the rain was, of course, much needed, and temperatures are heating up this week. We've got a few more thunderstorms coming in, and probably some more rain for the end of the week. So yeah, enjoying end of May, turning warmer.
Yeah, we're down here in 90-degree land. We've hit 90 2 days in a row.
Ooh.
So the 90s are here, and of course on television, the anchors say, "Ooh, when's the next cool down coming, James?" October. Let's say it together, okay?
Well, it's like a week ago. People are asking, when's it going to warm up and stay warm up? And I'm like, hello, we're almost to June, July, August. I mean, it's it's coming.
Let it take its time.
Yep. All right, Bill Murray, let's bring in our guest before our guest hangs up and runs.
Yeah, he probably should have already done that. But tonight's guest WeatherBrains is a suggestion of listener Ken Hoagland. He's not Ken, but our guest is a former Air Force meteorologist who's been using those skills and his knowledge in his career as a travel adventurer and photographer. Michael DeYoung, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Bill.
Well, I was really excited when I got the article from Ken that talked about you, and I thought you'd be a really fun guest. We've been having so many emotional, tough shows lately. It's nice to just have a fun one and talk about some cool stuff. So tell us about your Air Force career and how you got into meteorology. Was it one of those things where they just gave you a test and then pointed you through a door, or is that something you had always wanted to do?
Wow, we're going way back, going way back to 1980.
Yeah,
so,
well, all of us. Yeah, that's right. I graduated high school.
The Wayback Machine is where we like to go here.
All right. I think it was something that's always interested me. And I took a test, an evaluation test, and I had a choice between that and going to language school and learning Arabic or Russian. And, in retrospect, I probably should have done that, but I chose meteorology. So that's what I did.
So they pack you up and send you off to where and the training and where did you get stationed over the years?
So it started at a base that's no longer operational. It's Chanute Air Force Base, which is pretty much about 20 miles north of Champaign-Urbana, University of Illinois. And back when we had manned weather stations, right, I trained as an observer first. And out of observing school, I went to Colorado Springs Colorado. And for some reason, the Army can't do their own weather. So they have Air Force weather detachments on all Army posts that have aviation operations. So they sent me to Fort Carson. And that's where I met my wife, Lori, back then in 1982. We're still together today. And then 3 years or 4 years, I think in 1984, I went back to forecasting school, same place, 8 months. And then back, and then I got stationed to Great Falls, Montana, Malmstrom Air Force Base. And we picked up, as soon as I got there, we picked up a weather radar. So I went back to school to not just be a counter forecaster, but also be a radar weather observer too. And that tour lasted 3 years. And then finally I got what I asked for, which was Alaska. So we got sent back up to another Army installation outside of Anchorage called Fort Richardson. It's co-located with an Air Force base called Elmendorf. And they are now Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. And after 4 years there, I decided that I would not do that anymore. I loved meteorology, but I think I love photography more. And I wanted to try a career in the arts against the, advice of family members and friends. Nobody wants their kid to go be a musician or an artist or an actor or what have you. And I decided I'm going to do that. And my wife, Lori, had a great job. She's a computer programmer. So she dialed into the Alyeska Pipeline Service Company there, and we bought our first house. We looked at our situation and said, we really don't want to leave. And the Air Force would have certainly had me leave. So I left the weather station in 1992. I have not been with a group of weather pros since then. This is the first time.
Good, your streak's still in attack tonight, so that's excellent.
Yeah, right. And I honestly thought that I would never, ever again see a skew-T diagram or a 500 millibar chart. And the internet happened, and let me know if I'm going on too long and people are hanging up. I'll just
you got another hour and 30 minutes according to last
boy,
week's show.
okay,
So just keep going.
better dig down further. So
stretch.
it out,
Yeah.
right.
You got all night long.
Oh boy. Okay. So as you know, the internet happened, and in the late 90s, I think around 1997, I got kind of a big break. I got hired to shoot tourism for the state of Alaska. Every state that has a tourism division gets visual content to market that state. So Alaska is one of them. They had a pretty big budget. But as you know, Alaska kind of has a challenging climate. And a creative counselor that I hired at the time also talked about what they call creative separation, which is what photographers can do to separate themselves from their competition. Like, what can they do that other photographers can't do? Are you a pilot? Are you a scuba diver? Do you have some kind of special knowledge or special access or special creative way you look at things? And
you had a superpower.
I had a superpower. So,
yeah.
So one of the main criteria for photographing Alaska tourism was that everything had to look warm and inviting, and they were just really adamant about having certain types of weather. And I thought, wow, if there's one thing I can do, perhaps I can do that.
And it's hard to do when it's 10 below zero.
Well, it's not always 10 below zero. Sometimes in July, it's like 5 above zero. So
there you go. Exactly.
Yeah. So I just put that skill to use. And the second assignment I had was in 2000. And by that time, the internet was coming online. I began discovering that all the tools that each weather station paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for in a climate controlled room to get information and charts and satellite images was starting to become available online. So I went back to the drawing board and did what we do forecasting, which is pattern recognition and correlation, and began teaching myself what conditions created the most colorful and sailable skies and cloud cover, warm light, that type of thing. And so I did that for many, many years. And now a few years ago, I discovered windy.com. And for the first time, I felt like I finally have a vehicle to teach other photographers who are not meteorologists to learn weather, how it affects light, and to learn to predict, or to learn how to tailor forecasts for photographer needs. And then that branched out into, because I've always been an adventurer, I've done quite a few nice wilderness trips over the years. And then Hyperlight Mountain Gear, which is a pack and tent maker here in Maine, caught on to what I was doing. And now I'm beginning to formulate how I can teach wilderness travelers and backcountry travelers how to better understand weather and what it can do for them.
Tell us about Lori for a minute, because you mentioned her a couple of times, and she's obviously a big part of what you do. So give her some additional prompts.
Oh yeah, she is a very big part of what I do. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have her support. So we got married in Golden, Colorado, and our honeymoon was driving up the Alaska Highway. And we got to Anchorage on October 8th, 1988. It snowed 2 days later. We didn't see the ground till next April. That was kind of a shock. But she has been there by my side ever since. And without her, I wouldn't have a website that functions. I mean, she is like the IT department and the marketing department. So it's no different than any other small business, really, where you have divided roles, people who are good at what they do, people who are, so I'm good at the creative side, she's good at the technical side. And she's also a great adventure partner. So we've done, on her 40th birthday, we did a private trip through the Grand Canyon. We toured all the rapids through the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon in the winter. We've gone on remote Arctic trips in the Brooks Range and in Arctic Canada, just the two of us, a canoe and a month's worth of food. We've hiked 1,000 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail together. We're going to hike another 500 this summer. We're going on another Arctic River trip. So we're basically just doing the things that we've done since we were in our 20s. Back then we were young, we were strong, we were stupid. Today we're just stupid, and we do things a lot more slowly than we used to. But yeah, we're basically still doing the same thing. Just we're dialing down on the helmet sports a little bit. But we both ski, we both paddle whitewater, we both hike, and I am grateful that she's been there all that time. So she's also groomed her as also a photo assistant as well.
So Michael, talk for a minute about hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, because that seems like that and the Appalachian Trail are two of those ultimate bucket list things to me.
Right, opposite ends of the country.
Yeah.
What would you like to know about it?
Well, I know that if you start out at the wrong time of the year too early, you can really get caught by some amazing surprise storms. Not surprise if you're following the weather, but amazing storms that maybe you wouldn't expect in May or early, late in the spring.
That's true. So the trail is 2,650 miles long. It starts in Campo, California, and it goes up to the border of north of Harts Pass, Washington, on the border of British Columbia. And we, for some unforeseen reasons, did not have a chance to do it all in one fell swoop. So we're breaking it up into segments. But the challenge that any PCT hiker has is they have basically 3 months to get from last winter's snow to the coming winter's snow between the Sierra Nevada and the Washington Cascades. So most people start down south at the US-Mexico border, and they have a 700-mile warm-up until they get to the Sierra Nevada. They go across the Sierra Nevada in June, and most people, if they're doing it on track, will finish in Washington, hopefully with only a couple of snows by mid-September. So Lori and I are part of the Wrong Way gang. So we start at the north end and go south. So we're going southbound. So the hardest part of the trail is Washington, the most vertical change and the most challenging terrain. And I did it for the first time in July of 2016. And I got beat up pretty bad. We had snowfield crossings there that frightened me, and I'm pretty experienced on walking on glaciers in Alaska. We had one storm because the Washington Cascades, even in the summer, they can get convective weather, but they still get a lot of stratiform rain that lasts for 48 hours, and it just soaks everything to your bone. You know, hypothermia is a constant danger. You're up there around 6,000 to 7,000 feet, and the rain is unrelenting and nonstop. So the first year I had 10 days of rain. The second time, which was 2 years ago, we only had one episode where it rained continuously for 36 hours. And we didn't have very many snow crossings. Actually, I think the Mediterranean climate influence keeps going further and further north. And even Washington is now having more of a extremely dry summer, to where wildfires are as much, if not more, of a concern than hypothermic weather in the summertime that people don't expect if they're not used to it or they don't live in that region.
So did you read the book Wild, the memoir of Cheryl Strayed? Her trek on the Pacific Coast Trail is a relatively inexperienced hiker back early in the 2010s.
I saw the movie.
Became a movie, yeah, with Reese
Right.
Witherspoon.
Right.
I think my fascination with that trek, led me to that book and eventually to the movie. And it was just frightening. It's amazing that she even survived.
It is amazing she survived. She's pretty determined. Many people say that it's actually 90% mental.
Yeah, and Yogi Bear would say the other half is is physical, right, James, or something like that. I was fascinated by that at that time, and I'm sure there probably are people that don't make it, that don't survive, that pass away while they're attempting it. I would imagine somewhere along the way.
Yes, there are a few. There are people that always underestimate the weather or the environmental conditions. People fall off of snowy mountains, even in the San Jacinto Mountains in Southern California, because they didn't take an ice axe or spikes, or if they did, they didn't really train with them and learn how to use them. Other people die from crossing swollen streams in the Sierra or Washington, and they don't take swift water rescue. They never learn how to properly cross a challenging stream, or never learn how to even walk sometimes a mile upstream or downstream to find a better place, or just not do it. Just, risk assessment is a big part of that journey.
Yeah. So talk about some of the times that you were on some of these adventures that your knowledge and weather really saved the day. I'm sure there are some.
Yeah. Wow. Let's see. What can we do? Let me think. Well, I can think of one story where it could have saved the day, but it didn't.
Uh-oh.
So this was a commercial assignment in Alaska, and the agency that hired me hired a film crew out of LA, and they flew a 4-foot helicopter with a camera on a gimbal. So they took aerials. So this was 2003. And so they're out there with this 4-foot helicopter, and they're shooting HD, and this thing is $200,000. Of course, today, right, any high school kid with $400 can buy a DJI, a Maverick drone, and exceed the capability of what we had back then. But it was an involved shoot. It was 7 days, and on one of the days, we were shooting out in a beautiful national park that most people have not heard of, called Kenai Fjords National Park. It's on the southern end of the Kenai Peninsula. It's a land of fjords like Norway, with glaciers and wildlife and everything. And one of the shoots on that day was supposed to be a couple sea kayaking in front of a beautiful rock formation and then a glacier. And the film crew and the state and the agency, the ad agency I was working for, they chartered a 100-foot tour boat for the whole day. I have no idea what that cost them, but probably a pretty penny. And the location manager, I remember being with the location manager, and I remember explaining to them that we should do a particular shoot in the morning because of katabatic winds that kick off the Harding ice field and the large glaciers. And he didn't believe me, and I was not very assertive. And so we didn't do that shoot in the morning. We chased whales and dolphins all day. And then sure enough, in the afternoon, we went out to shoot these inexperienced kayakers from the glacier. And we had, as I explained to him, 20 to 30 miles an hour of wind kicking off this glacier. Rough seas, uncontrollable, cold, and it didn't go well. But I think that shoot was kind of a turning point. It kind of made me realize that I really do have more value than I gave myself credit for. And I realized that I also went from one thankless job to another, right? From a meteorologist to a photographer.
That's an important lesson for all of us, because, you know, we do have important information to impart for sure. And that becomes important. So you've done some really cool tourism assignments. I guess, James, this may be the closest we've ever been to having someone who had the same skill sets, or in my case, lack of skill sets, tourism and hospitality and meteorology. I'm lucky to be the chairman of the Birmingham Convention and Visitors Bureau, and our meeting was today. And, you know,
Bill is kind of a big deal.
I don't know about that, but it's a real honor to serve.
Listen, Bill does a great job for the city. He's not going to say this, but he's a great advocate for the city, does a great job. And that takes a lot of time. So just thank you.
It sure is a lot of fun, but a lot of that is video, is, you know, telling the story and getting that information out there. So that's really cool. I got to spend some time in Alaska in 1999. Yeah, I think it was 1999, salmon fishing. And it was an amazing experience, you know, 7 days up in the morning, out at, you know, 5:30, 6 o'clock, out on these rivers, thousands of casts every day, catching, you know, dozens of fish. It's an amazing place. It really was a miraculous week. And I caught a 24-inch rainbow trout. I mean, yeah, I didn't even imagine they got that big. And of course, I didn't get to keep it because it was so beautiful, but the photographs are just stunning, you know, because in between the Dolly Varden and the salmon, there was this gorgeous rainbow trout that I got to fight for about 45 minutes before I was able to wrangle him, you know, in and, you know, get a picture with it. But it's just an amazing experience. So what are some of the other cool tourism assignments you've gotten over time?
In 2011 or 12, I got hired by the state of South Carolina.
Closer to home.
Closer to home.
For us, at least.
For you guys. So they sent me down there in mid-November, and had the first Canadian air mass come down. That kind of played havoc. We had Southern kids out there at 35 degrees. You know, it was sunny and clear, but stiff wind. And it went pretty well. There was one day where the art director, so the client doesn't always send a representative out in the shoots. That's usually they leave it up to the creative team at an ad agency. So the ad agency has a producer, and that producer has an assistant. And then the ad agency has a creative director, and that creative director also has an assistant. So they're all about design, and they have storyboards and comps and what have you. And there was one day where we had to go shoot or photograph kids swimming in, was it Myrtle Beach, I think. And the creative directors were leaning on me to call weather days. And that worked. They followed my advice, and we saved them some money and saved them some time, and got what they wanted and the weather conditions that they wanted.
And so James gets more sunset photographs than anybody in the planet, and some of them are just absolutely stunning. But you probably got some tips to help people, you know, get even better sunset photographs. Just looking for the day that's perfect, and then doing them correctly. What would you say to us sunset photographers out there who are just clamoring to get on James's social media feeds?
I see. Well, the secret is high clouds. Definitely. So this is one of the things that I'm teaching other photographers to interpret. So I tell them, listen, we have to get beyond the simple icon forecast that you see on the internet or on your weather app. And if you look at a National Weather Service forecast, which I'm an advocate for, I mean, I'm always telling people to go to the horse's mouth. So I say, if you have 2 days that are partly cloudy, that can make a big difference in terms of a photograph. So if one day is partly cloudy and it's, some fair weather cumulus or stratocumulus from daily heating, that doesn't mean anything. But if you have cirrus and it's clear where the sun is going to be when it sets or rises, that's almost a sure bet that those clouds are going to light on fire.
Yeah. So
Actually, Bill, there's one more element that you really need. You know what that is?
what's that?
Filter.
Yeah, when that harp is going full blast, that's a good time for
Man,
sunset photographs.
I posted a picture from Etowah County tonight with contrails, and the chemtrail action team. They have a chemtrail action team apparently, and if they see any photograph of cirrus clouds or contrails on a meteorologist page, they will come in by the dozens and discuss the chemical spraying of our country, and it just goes on and on. And they're not very nice. I mean, they're and they'll use ugly, bad cussing words, bad talking people. So anyway, just a shout out to the chemtrails.
And it's so funny because, I got the same letter you probably get all the time, a couple of weeks ago, and the person was real insistent that, I just wasn't paying attention to what was going on. And I teach this in a 6th grade science class, about how those contrails get up there. And, but apparently I've been misleading all these 6th graders all these years.
Exactly.
Here's a comparison I try to use. I say, if you go to Fairbanks in January when it used to be 50 below zero, right? That's the same temperature you might find at 30,000 feet, under a high pressure ridge aloft. And I say, you know what happens at 50 below in Fairbanks? Ice fog. It's a man-made fog. Moisture is a byproduct of all internal combustion engines. And as soon as it leaves the tailpipe, it condenses. I say, the inversions are so extreme. You would think the skew T plots are wrong when you look at one from, some northern latitude interior location in the wintertime. And anyhow, the point is that you're driving in a contrail, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're telling photographers, to look for high clouds and predict high clouds, what tools are you using? Like a 300 millibar moisture chart or a TAF or what? What's a good tool to recommend for people that may not be as versed in the meteorology?
Right. So I tried that at first, and then I started looking at I think both the North American Mesoscale and the GFS both had cloud forecast charts where they would forecast the 850, 700, 500, 3 millibar moisture fields. So you could use that, but the best tool today is Windy. Windy.com. The European, the global, and the North American all have graphical cloud forecasts. And you can separate them out from high, middle, low, and conglomerate. So the first step is to teach people cloud ID, right? Step number 1, right? I can say, hey, look for cirrus clouds, nothing else below, but people have to separate a cirrus cloud from a stratus cloud and stratocumulus. And the other clouds I love the most, my favorite, are mountain wave. So mountain wave clouds, you don't see those much over the Appalachians, but we see them here in the Rockies, right? In Sangre de Cristo, or 12 to 13,000 feet right out my east window here. So they're always ice crystals. Even in the summertime, they're high enough to where they're almost always above the freezing level. So therefore, they're going to bounce and reflect light more. Same formula. Clear skies on the horizon, doesn't matter. Sunrise or sunset. If you see mountain wave or even fair weather altocumulus or cirriform clouds, they're going to light up. And then we go through the graphical cloud forecasts that are presented on Windy, and I go through cloud charts. I tell people to read Jetstream, right? Jetstream is the NOAA's little information or tutorial arm on the National Weather Service site. They have a pretty good cloud tutorial on there.
And Jen, didn't some Penn State students make a sunset app or something that took into account weather and times and things like that? Or am I imagining things?
No, I can't remember what it is. I'll have to look it up, but no, you're right.
So that's a pretty cool tool. But
Yeah.
Windy, I'll have to check that out, Michael. That's a cool sounding app.
You
I don't
guys
think I've
know
done
that?
any time with it. I don't think I did. Aubrey, had you ever heard of Windy?
I have an app, but I don't know that I've necessarily used it that much. Do they have an app? Do you know?
They have an app. You can go to windy.com
Yes.
just on your,
Okay.
on your laptop, and you can download their app for free.
Yeah, I think that's the one I have. I use it occasionally when I'm looking for. So I always have a hard time trying to find like peak gust data. If I'm really looking for the high wind gusts across the area. I mean, you know, there's different websites for everything, but even like on Weather Underground or something like that, I have to click each individual weather station to see, you know, if a storm actually passed through this area or something like that. I mean, I can use the NWS weather hazards and data site, which is great. And that's the better way. But for some of these individual weather stations, you have to click on them individually.
Well, I mean, the good thing about Windy, it was invented by a Swiss guy, and they have overlaid all the world's topographical maps. So, you know, using MOS guidance, of course, you can pick your model. By default, they go with the European, but you can pick the global. You can pick the North American if you'd like, and you can pick any point you want more accurately than you can off the National Weather Service site.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can follow the trail to the summit of Mount Whitney, which is the highest point in the lower 48 states, and you can get an exact forecast, you know, MOS-based forecast for that elevation in hour increments. And not only do you get the little weather icons, but you can go to a feature they call a meteogram. It's more aviation based,
Mm-hmm.
and they give you humidity. It's probably humidity. It doesn't, not a direct correlation to clouds, but they give you humidity throughout the vertical column of the atmosphere all the way out to 10 days. They give you winds. They give you peak gusts. They give you all kinds of things. I think Windy is very popular with aviators. I mean, I don't think it should replace official flight weather briefings, but it's a very useful tool because they give you lots of winds aloft information from surface all the way to, I think, 200 millibars on that.
Where would you find this meteogram data? I don't see it.
So the meteogram data, if you just pick on a location,
Okay.
so Aubrey, just pick a favorite location.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And go down to the very bottom, or if your right click says get forecast for this location, there should be some graphics that show up on the bottom of your screen.
Yep.
Okay, and if down below you see a meteogram,
Mm-hmm.
so if you hit that, you're going to see
Wow.
a very more aviation-based forecast.
You know, that's even a good forecast for, I mean, I can look at all the different models at the same time.
You can. And you can do a
That's quite
compare.
impressive.
You can do a compare. And one of the things I'm discovering, you know, again, pattern recognition and correlation, this is for remote areas. So we're not talking about cities. We're talking about the bottom of the Grand Canyon or the top of the Sierra Nevada. And the Meteo Blue, I don't know what they do, but the Meteo Blue seems to be much more accurate with temperatures in mountainous regions and remote areas. Because you're looking at what would be the right term? Would it be biased or unbiased? So it's not corrected, right? You're not having a Weather Service forecast office lead forecaster writing a discussion and telling people we're favoring the European. They're handling this pattern better than the others. You don't get that. All you get is raw model data. But again, I find it very useful for both adventure planning and for photography. Because it goes, to expand on what we were talking about earlier, Bill, it goes beyond a few cirrus clouds. There's an old mariner saying there's a lot of truth to it, and that is, red skies in morning, sailor take warning, red skies at night, sailor delight. So I teach people that if this is a warm front, and if you have the leading edge of cirrostratus and altostratus coming into your location when approaching front, you have clear air to the east where the sun's going to rise, your sky is going to explode with color. It's going to be the best light of the day.
Yeah. Any other weather folklore that you find useful in teaching? I know Jen's found a treat for us. She's going to share in a second here, but any other weather folklore that you incorporate into your teaching?
Well, that's the only one. And of course, I have to stress the importance of mid-latitudes, prevailing westerlies, because there are parts of the country, be it South Texas or Florida, that are in deep easterlies, or Alaska, which can also be in deep easterlies. We have systems that rotate in from the easterly direction where that rule doesn't apply. So I have to tell people this only applies if you have a storm approaching from a westerly direction.
Jen, you found our app, didn't you?
I did. Jacob DeFlitch, he currentently works at the National Weather Service in Seattle. We may have to get him on the show, but Penn State alum. He has the website is Sunset WX. So it's sunsetweather.com, sunsetwx.com.
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's orange and blue coated thing.
That's right. Yeah, a better sunrise is denoted by warmer colors.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Didn't we have them on the show years ago?
I think we did.
We did.
That was about 700 shows ago.
Probably about.
That site doesn't define what's a good sunrise or sunset. And I like the site. I've used it before, but I also like to teach people to make those decisions on their own based on learning cloud ID and based on learning to interpret the model forecasts that they're seeing for whatever their area of interest is.
Yeah, Jacob DeFletch was on show 522. That's in 2015. Boy, God, time has just flown, hasn't it? Yeah, that's pretty cool. We'll have to get him back for an update, because I think then he was he had just graduated from Penn State and got his bachelor's in meteorology. So that's pretty cool. So you were mentioning mountain waves, Michael. What do you look for to portend that you're going to see those above the mountains out where you are? What conditions lead to that?
So the conditions that lead to these, and this is, I try not to teach it. It's a bit of a heavy lift, but obviously a dirty ridge, anticyclonic flow, and then wind flow perpendicular to the mountains, and a little bit of moisture, in that 700 to 500 millibar layer. So
that sounds awesome.
So, that flow bucks across a mountain range, and then you get beautiful lenticular clouds. You can also recognize it in certain parts of the country, right? Because where you see these kind of clouds the most is going to be in Montana on the Rocky Mountain front, say from Great Falls up to the Canadian Rockies. And you can see a cloud forecast that's oriented north-south, and the back edge of it is like a hard line. And so in order to interpret models, you got to be a bit of a geographer too. I mean, you got to understand the topography that you're interested in. So you can just tell by the graphical presentation of the clouds that they're forecasting, and you can go to that meteogram, you can see where that moisture layer is, and you can pretty much conclude that they're forecasting mountain waves. And they're pretty accurate. And the way I use that, and the way I teach other photographers to use that, is like, okay, we all have busy lives. So this week I got a million things to do, blogs to write for Hyperlight and estimates to do. And I go through Windy and I see, Thursday morning, they're forecasting a possible great sunrise, because we're going to have mountain wave lenticular clouds over the mountains to the east. So on Thursday morning, I'm going to set my alarm, go to my favorite location, try to get some nice shots. So I want to be at a place that lends itself to a good image instead of shooting great sunsets like most people do. And this is not meant to be a pejorative, it's just an observation. You know, great sunsets you see from most people have power lines in their neighbors' roofs in the foreground. So if you're a professional photographer, you want to kind of like go for a little bit better of a foreground or a terrestrial subject matter.
The ultimate Alabama sunrise or sunset photograph, James, has what in it? Cows.
Cows.
Or a barbed wire fence. You give me a sunset picture with cows or a barbed wire fence, it's going on television tonight.
Fantastic.
Now listen, I can I pivot here for just a minute, Bill?
Yeah, pivot.
Listen, I do weather. That's all I do. Taking pictures, all I know is you press a button on a phone. So, and again, a lot of people that listen to this show are really good photographers, but then again, a lot of us, we take pictures with a phone and we click a button. So for somebody that's interested in kicking it up a notch, what would you recommend in terms of hardware? I've got some real camera in the closet. I'll pull it out. Our son used to play baseball, so I'd use it with the lens. You know, that's the thing. It had a lens on it with the zoom lens. And I was horrible at it. You know, I don't understand f-stop and aperture and all this stuff. I don't even know what that stuff means. So give us a little simpleton introduction to photography past the phone that's in your pocket. And there's nothing wrong with pictures with phones. It's amazing. I'll tell people all the time, the best phone in the world is the one you got with you, which in many cases is a phone. But give us a little introduction to photography if you want to kick it up a notch.
Okay, I will answer that. But before I do, let me say this, that good photography is 90% lighting and design. So if you're a weather guy and you know, and you can have a sense that tonight's going to be a great sunset, tomorrow's going to be a great sunrise, or it's going to snow in Alabama and it only does that once a year. So take your iPhone. It's timing, right? So you can get dazzling, professional looking photos by, doing what you did, just pressing the button. But if you want to upscale it, the world is moving towards mirrorless single lens reflex cameras.
So what is it? Well, I don't even know what is a DSLR? I think that's what I have, which is old. So that's what's going away, right?
Yes. An SLR is a single lens reflex. A DSLR is a digital single lens reflex. And those cameras, hold on just a second.
Props. I like it.
Yeah.
Props.
I know this is a podcast, right? So, but people can see this.
We about 1 in 4 watch it, about 3 in 4 listen to it. So be kind of descriptive.
Okay. So SLRs have a big piece of glass up here called the pentaprism that flips the image around and makes it look right through your viewfinder. And now we have mirrorless cameras that get rid of that. So they're smaller, lighter, less expensive, easier to use, better optically. Optics are important. The lens you choose is an important part of the process. Almost every digital camera on the market today will allow you to shoot in full automatic mode, where if you don't understand the difference between an f-stop and a truck stop, you don't have to.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
You can just put it in the PhD mode. So the PhD mode is push here, dummy.
I like it.
Again, it's
Talking to me.
So it's light and it's design, right? So if you were to learn about line, shape, form, pattern, texture, color, if you were to learn about separation, contrast, separation, selective lighting, selective focus, I know I'm throwing a lot at you. I get that. My main point was, don't dwell on the equipment so much. Good photography is achieved by more what's up here. But if you wanted to start out, this little outfit here that I'm holding is a Sony mirrorless. It's a Alpha 6600, and it's got a beautiful 24 millimeter lens on it. It's great for night shooting and video. And this this is about $1,500 for this. I don't know if that's meets or exceeds your budget, but the mirrorless cameras today with interchangeable lenses are so much lighter. They're so much easier to travel with than what we had in the film days, and what we had in the early digital days. So that's what I would do.
So here, and here's the next question. What post-processing? What do you use for that? What piece of software?
The software that most people use is called Lightroom. It's an Adobe product. We all have heard of Adobe, right? Photoshop is Adobe, Illustrator is Adobe, Acrobat is Adobe. So they make a software called Lightroom.
What if I'm just a very basic amateur and I don't want to pay for Lightroom because I don't take enough photos, or maybe I just go out in the summertime? You know, what do you like Pixlr for desktop, or what do you think?
Yes, there are several relatively inexpensive programs that you could use to edit your photos. I use a Mac, so I use a program called Photo Mechanic. And if you're shooting JPEG files, it shows them instantly. It allows you to catalog them and move them here and there and what have you. I think there's a program for PCs called Breeze Browser. And these are good browsing programs. I don't know, because I use Lightroom exclusively for all my processing, and I can explain why I do that in a minute. I don't know of any entry-level editing programs where you can change the color and contrast and all that. I think Photoshop might still make elements that will do that for you.
This is the simpleton guy that I am. I use Photos on a Mac. I mean, it's got basic editing features. If you go to Photos on a Mac, which is free, it comes with it.
Software,
it's got the idiot type editing tools that somebody like me can understand, and it serves my purpose just fine. So, and again, if I were serious, yeah, Lightroom is great, but I don't have time. I'm not that serious. I just want to learn more about it. And here's the other thing I was going to ask. So a lot of, people that send me these pictures, that they kind of figured out some of the basics, and they'll get up there and they've learned, saturation, and they'll crank that thing wide open. And they'll send it to me like, ooh, look at this. And that makes people so stinking mad. They start fighting in the comment section. I mean, it's like a brawl. It's like a pure brawl going on here about this saturation, and they crank it up. And I don't know why people do that, but they do. But do you have to have an edited version, a filtered version of a photo to post? I mean, do you always go to Lightroom every time you take a picture?
No.
Seems like cheating.
Yeah.
If you're really good at light and design, and you're photographing pictures in good light, you hardly need to do anything to them. So a lot of my pictures are just like light to moderate adjustments, or they look good right out of the box.
Well, I've learned that people don't like the saturation, crank it up all the way pictures. I mean, it makes some people so mad. Their underwear gets flapping up down their legs, and I do think they've ruined a really good photograph by doing that.
Just to play devil's advocate, I used to oversaturate my photos a little bit. And that is because I spent in the film days, I would edit slides on a 4-foot table that was full spectrum lighting, 6,000 degree Kelvin lighting. And I would spend all day looking at photos with this light emanating in my face with a magnifying glass to determine which piece of film was good and which wasn't. And over the years, I kind of desaturated my color perception. So I had to learn to compensate for that. But I do understand what you're saying, in that people take it too far. So you've probably heard this expression before, but it certainly applies to photography: garbage in, garbage out. I mean, if you have to push your saturation to the degree you're describing, you don't really have a good photo. It's time.
Yeah, and I tell people, don't fight about it. Just consider it artwork. I mean, just consider it some form of art, and just quit fighting about it. It doesn't bother me But what's your advice again for, let's just say, again, let's go back. And most people that send me photographs, they're phone photographs, obviously.
Right.
What's some advice for people that take a great sunset shot or a sunrise photograph or a photograph of a thunderstorm, lightning, whatever on their phone? What's some processing advice you could give them? Not necessarily Lightroom, but just with the simple, contrast, brightness, saturation, filter controls you've got on the phone.
The advice I would give is try to have a full range of detail without anything blowing out in the highlights or blowing out in the shadows. So you could just use your shadow and highlight sliders to make sure that doesn't happen. Because one of the things that's very distracting in any photo is having large areas of pure white that have no detail, or having large areas of pure black that have no detail. So
and the other thing I've learned too, a lot of people, and again, this is just Joe Q Public, they send pictures and they'll crop it. They'll crop a little bitty segment and then blow that sucker up, and it's all pixelized and it looks horrible, but they really think it's a cool picture of like a bird or something. They think that they can just zoom in digitally, and it's the same as an optical zoom. And it's just like, I can't
it's not
use that.
And
no.
what looks good on Instagram and what looks good on Facebook is not going to look good as a 16 by 20 print or even larger. So we're getting in. I hope I'm answering your question, James. But we're starting to peel off more layers of the onion as we go along. I mean, it just gets deeper and deeper. So again, if I can emphasize, people who send their photos in, send them in minimally processed. Because now I'm going to peel off another layer of the onion. Now we get into color management and color profiling. What they see on their phone might be different than what you see on your screen at work. And it might be different than what you present up on the screen during a broadcast, which is going to be different on people's different TVs, right? I mean, if you go to Best Buy, you can stand back and look at all the TV screens, and most of them are going to have different colors because they're not all color matched. So in the professional world, we have to color profile our cameras, our monitors, our printers. People don't do that in the civilian world. So I send my photos to clients minimally processed, and I let them, since they're paying for them, I let them decide how much saturation they need or want. The main takeaway is try to get a full range of detail in your highlight and shadows. Don't take pictures again with large blocks of pure white, large blocks of pure black.
So another stupid question here, and I don't mean to build your show here.
No, I love it.
I'll stop here in just a second. I mean, I am just I would love to learn this. So I see a lot of people and they shoot in these different formats, RAW and JPEG and all this other stuff. And the resolution, like the screen size of these photographs, what should people be using in a camera in terms of format and, the aspect ratio?
Well, the aspect ratio for stills is pretty set, like 4:3.
But some people shoot 16 by 9, which we love in the television business because we happen to be We happen to be 16 by 9.
Correct.
But most of it's 4 by 3. So you recommend that people shoot 4 by 3?
I recommend people shoot 4 by 3. Another thing I do as a pro photographer is what we call formatting. I have to format pictures so that they can be cropped to a standard 8.5 by 11 cover, 11 by 17 double page spread, a 16 by 9 screen, a standard 4 by 9 rack card, or a 3:1 banner across the website. So I would take a 4 by 3 photo and I would format it so that if I sent it into a TV station, they could easily crop it and it would still look good and still maintain visual integrity on a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. So I'll go in. This is going to be a little challenging. I'll go in. So what most cameras do is they have a mini photo lab built into the camera. So all cameras shoot raw files. And what they do is they take that raw file and they process it and they give it a color profile. They give it saturation, they give it contrast, sharpness, and they put that in the form of a JPEG and it puts that on your card. And then the lower end cameras will then take the raw file, which you would consider a digital negative, and they would throw it away. So if you remember back in film days, you would shoot a roll of print film, you take it down to Costco or whatever lab, and they would give you back 4x6 prints, and they would throw your negatives away. That's what happens when you're shooting a JPEG. So there's value to it in that it's quick, it's easy, it's already processed for you. But what a RAW does is a RAW allows the photographer to go back and pull so much more out of the photo. So if you go to a furniture store, you see a table that you like, what you see is what you get. That table, let's say it's got a light walnut finish on it, and you want to, or it's got a dark walnut finish on it, and you want to make it light. There's going to be a lot of effort in making that a light finish from a dark finish. If you go to a carpenter shop, a woodworker, they may not have no tables, but they have all the tools to make you anything you want. So a RAW.
So you always take RAW and put that into Lightroom.
Correct. But almost every camera on the market today, including some cell phones, I think the Samsungs, will give you both. They will give you RAW files and JPEGs. So you can take pictures, you can send them to your friends, you can take small JPEGs to your friends. And if you ever took the time to learn, or if you really got something really special and you wanted to take it to a friend who knew how to process photos and make a big print for you, then you have that negative, that RAW file that they can do that with. So it's like anything else. It's just repetition. I mean, I have 190,000 RAW files in my Lightroom library. I've been doing this for ever since the beginning.
That's a big hard drive.
It's a big series of hard drives. So I just, I'm very fast and efficient at processing RAW files. And I get a lot of folks in our age group who in their retirement years want to take up photography. And they all sing a similar tune. And that tune is I really enjoy going out taking photos in nature. I don't want to spend time behind the computer processing my photos, right? And I say, all the more reason to learn Lightroom. Why? Because the faster and more efficient you get at it, the less time you spend dinking with your photos. The better you are at lighting your photos, the better you are at designing your photos, the less time you have to spend dinking with them in Lightroom. You download them, you do a quick process, it's beautiful, it's done, go out and enjoy nature again.
Bill, I got one more question. I promise I'll let you take it here. So another stupid question from a guy that wants to learn this. Let's say I have 100,000 photographs. Don't want to lose them. So tell me about your backup strategy in terms of storing all these precious photographs of all of these places that you've been. For me, I've got a network attached storage at the house, a NAS, with one drive phase. It's Synology. And I back that up and I bring the backup down here and I back it up to Google Photos and, iCloud, all these online things. What's your strategy for backing up photos in a way where you don't lose the quality and you've always got them?
Well, you never lose the quality. You can copy an original RAW file 1,000,000 times and it'll still have the millionth copy will have the same integrity. So I would say you've pretty much got it dialed in. You're ahead of where most people are. I do exactly what you do. All my files are backed up in triplicate.
One being offsite.
And then at least one of those being offsite. And
I think that the online thing is what confuses me, because Google is changing. For years it was like free, unlimited storage, and now they're saying it's unlimited, but you've got this quality reduction when you upload it to Google if you don't pay them. And I'm not quite sure how that works. So I guess the question I have, it's the cloud backup. What's your solution for that? Or do you back up in the cloud, or do you even need that?
I don't back up to the cloud because I don't want Google or Apple or anyone else compressing my photos. And I back up RAW files. So it may be different. I can see where there might be a quality loss when you're sending JPEGs up to the cloud, they might compress them in a way that when you get them back and uncompress them, you're going to lose quality. So I'm sorry I misspoke. That is definitely an issue with JPEG. It is not an issue with a raw file or a digital negative. So I do not send those up to the cloud because each one of my raw files is 30 megabytes uncompressed.
You know, when we first got our first weather graphics computer, this was in 1982. This was an Apple IIe. They bought with it a 5 megabyte hard drive. I thought in my lifetime, we will never, ever, 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 ever fill this thing up. So now when you're talking 30 megs for one photo, I'm thinking, oh, wow. Who'd have thunk it?
30 megs for one photo. Yeah. And hard drive space keeps getting more and more and more. I was going to see what the size of this SD card here is, and I can't seem to pull it out, but you know what an SD card looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. So I calculated this is 64 gigabyte SD card. This holds like the same amount of images as like 90 rolls of 36 exposure film. 90 rolls right here.
Wow.
In this little card right here. So you are doing the right thing on the backup. So hard drives will always be around. Just upgrade your hard drives. I mean, if you still have FireWire 400 connections on your hard drives, probably should upgrade those. But just duplicates.
Yeah, and I've got a Synology at the house, and I back that thing up to just a bunch of these drives and bring them down here to the TV station. So I've got them in different places.
Right.
And it works. It works, very well. I figure the odds of the two places burning down at the same time, it'd take a strike from somebody.
Or an EF5 tornado coming up 119.
Or the big EMP or something. Yeah, no telling.
Yeah, don't you
anyway,
ever
Bill, I'm sorry. I'll turn the program back over to you.
Asking questions, because I know Nate Johnson will agree that some of the best, stuff on this show, over 800 episodes, has been what we've learned from each and every weather brain, right, Nate?
Absolutely.
Even if it's completely unweather related, like photography and raw file.
I think they're more related than the average bear would think.
Yeah, and frankly, as you mentioned, having a sense of the weather is going to give you a sense of how you compose your images and where the lighting's going to be and that sort of thing. And if you have a sense of what the weather's going to do, then you can pick out the days where you're going to have a good sunrise or a good sunset, or you're going to be able to position yourself so you got the sun behind you and the storm in front of you. Things that I think like storm chasers probably do this. They probably don't think about it maybe in the same way, but they've come to appreciate and understand. Although I don't know, certainly some chasers do very, very consciously think about this, but others, I think a lot of it's just you learn where the sun's going to be relative to the storm, and that helps you position yourself relative to the storm so you get the shot that you want.
That's correct. I have done, I think, 4 webinars this winter, teaching the Windy app and teaching basic meteorology to photographers. None of it is around storm chasing. That's kind of a very specialized thing. It's kind of an adrenaline sport. I think it's great, but not everybody is going to have supercells that they can chase, but everybody is going to have cirrus clouds. It's like the universal color cloud. I've seen it in the tropics in Costa Rica. I see it on the north slopes of the Brooks Range, everywhere in between. And I also talked about earlier, we talked about approaching storms. Like if you catch them at sunrise, they usually produce brilliant colors. And I also talk about clearing storm scenarios, which are probably my absolute favorite. When the atmosphere is scoured out from air mass stagnation before a front came in, underlit, low clouds, fresh snow, very cold air for people who live in cold regions. I may be the only one here, but Arctic air masses in the western US and in the north produce the most beautiful warm light on Earth, bar none.
Yeah.
So it might be 40 below, but when you see the belt of Venus and alpenglow, 40 below and ice crystals, it is just magic. And I know this is a podcast, and I wish I could have shown pictures so you could see what I look like. They're on my website, but I think weather folk would pretty much pick out that a lot of the photos on my website are going to see some pretty prominent element of weather in there.
So I have a question, and this is, and forgive me if I missed this earlier because I had to put a kid down to bed and she didn't want to go to bed tonight.
Oh, what happened?
It's going around, Nate. We hear.
Yeah. So help me out with, I hear photographers talk about golden hour.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What is that? Why is that? And why is it so amazing?
I don't know if it's always amazing. I think it's amazing if you have the right clouds. So the golden hour is basically just the first or last hours of the day. Quality of light is inversely proportional to quantity of light. So if you're shooting long exposures at sunrise and sunset, you're getting better quality of light than handheld short exposures in the middle of the day. So when your sun is sitting on the horizons, right,
Mhm.
you just get a better quality of light. It's warmer. Human beings gravitate more towards warm light than they do cold light. Warm light being orange, yellow, the warmer colors of the spectrum versus blue and violet and all that. So that's what the golden hour is. And the golden hour differs. So in Alaska, this time of year, the golden hour lasts 3 times longer than it would in Alabama or here in New Mexico, simply because the ascension and descension angle of the sun is so much shallower. It takes longer in the northern latitudes for the sun to sink from 6 degrees above the horizon to sunset than it does in the lower latitudes. So that's what the golden hour is. That's why photographers like it.
I just realized one of my favorite places is Telluride, Colorado. I got to spend some time there several years ago, an extended period of time. But the alpenglow was what was always something that everyone looked forward to. But on the webcam for Telluride, you can go back to the last sunrise and back to the last sunset just with one click of a button, and they always are spectacular pictures. Even if you're not looking at the sunrise or the sunset, just the lighting in the town is just so much more beautiful.
Aubrey, did she leave? I should have mentioned
Probably doing a little bit of weather. She'll be back.
She has to do television this half hour. She'll be back.
Okay, because the Windy, she seemed to be looking at the Windy app while we were talking. The Windy also has webcams from all over the world where you could verify if something is happening somewhere. So I'm almost sure that a webcam from a major ski resort like Telluride would be on there. And you can actually see if you're missing something good or not.
Just like my virtual railfan site I go to look at trains. If I can't be in Washington and see the mountain wave clouds, I'll look for the prediction and then verify them with a webcam.
I just read, when you asked me this question earlier, Bill, I had a difficult time kind of jogging my memory.
Yeah.
But I do remember one shoot for that South Carolina job in Myrtle Beach, and it was a pretty cold day. And we were at what's the theme park that's there? Does anyone remember? It was like this magical theme park that's there in Myrtle Beach, and we were shooting.
Theme park I know of in South Carolina is south of the border.
Okay.
Not exactly a theme park.
Got a lot of billboards though.
Yes, it does.
Well, we were shooting
weather related.
and people were cold and they wanted to leave. And I remember saying, we can't leave because it was November and there was a deck of altocumulus. And I told them we need to hang around because this cloud deck is going to explode with color. And it did. It was one of the most beautiful sunsets I saw down there in the Southeast ever.
Yeah. So looking for altocumulus, looking for what else? What are your other favorite clouds for sunrise, sunsets?
Well, mountain wave, altocumulus, cirrus, and believe it or not, any big convective cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching some of these storms in Kansas this afternoon on some of the Severe Studios chasers, and those were beautiful storms. And fortunately, they weren't very destructive. But what was really amazing to me today was watching the chasers, because I think everybody in the plains came out today to catch these storms, and watching them on GR Earth, all the chasers converging on that storm west of Garden City. I did a little time lapse of that, and just made me laugh. You could just see them coming down. What highway is that, Jen? That leads into Garden City from the north, and they were just coming down that highway, and then they spread out across all those farm roads and got in position, and it was really just an amazing thing.
This was today?
That. Yeah, happening today.
This must have been the same front that swept through here on Saturday evening.
Yeah, I noticed in Colorado today there were some cold places. Berthoud Pass was at 34. Wolf Creek Pass was in the 30s.
We hit 34 at the house this morning.
Yeah,
yeah, there was ice on our bird baths.
But Telluride had brilliant blue skies. I mean, they were just as clear as they could be.
There was zero cumulus cloud development over the mountains today, like nothing.
So talk about, mountain patterns, weather patterns, valley weather patterns that are important to, hikers and other adventurers that are up above the tree line. Michael, what are some other tips you warn them about?
Right. That's a good question. So I try to teach people about temperature inversions and how it's not always, camping by a lake after it rained all day is not always the best place to camp. 500 to 1,000 feet up off the valley floor might be a warmer and a drier place to camp. I tell people that adiabatic elapse rate is not always constant, and that if you see convective clouds, big billowing cumulus clouds, that's telling you that the lapse rate is steeper than normal. That's why those clouds are there. So as you ascend in height, you have two things that you have to be concerned about. You have to be concerned about your temperature is cooling maybe at a faster rate than 5 degrees per 1,000 feet. And that when not all rain falls out of a cloud, hits the ground, a lot of it evaporates, and you get very, very strong evaporative cooling, particularly here in the Western United States when you have very high base thunderstorms. So your temperature at 11,000 feet on a day hike, you might start in shorts and a t-shirt, you're on a day hike, and if you get caught in a thunderstorm, your temperature can drop down into the upper 30s in 20 minutes. I mean, it's that severe. We talk about lightning exposure, talk about, breaking cumulus forms when you break the inversion. I try to teach people about convective condensation level. Like you can look at a forecast and see where the height of your cumulus cloud might form when you're hiking in the mountains and so forth. But mainly just try to warn folks that high base thunderstorms kick out really, really strong winds. They can put you in a hyperthermic situation faster than you can ever imagine.
Michael, it seems like it's been a deadly avalanche season out in the Rockies in Western United States. Do you do anything that teaches adventurers about how to spot, how to protect themselves against avalanches?
I don't. I am not an avalanche expert. I have taken avalanche courses. I have learned different snow types. I have learned how to do shear tests to test a snowpack before even attempting to ski down it. I have learned that many people have a hard time accepting the fact that many avalanches that unfortunately injure or kill people are triggered by the victim themselves. Mm-hmm. Not just some random act of God that happens. They're the ones that provide the critical mass that results in a release. And just like you should take severe weather warning seriously, just like you should take hydrology warning seriously, you should take avalanche warning seriously. And some people do and some people don't.
Wow.
And even just like anything else, I mean, I'm a big believer in understanding the capabilities of forecasting and looking at forecasts before you go on a week backpack trip. But Also, I'm a big advocate for teaching people to make a short-term forecast based on what you're seeing right there on location, right? So if you watch the rate of cumulus development and you're climbing above timberline, you're going to be there for 5 hours, that maybe you should stop and not do that. Or make sure you have adequately protected gear and expect strong winds. Expect hail even on the hottest July days. Another thing I try to teach folks is that, like, the most unpredictable mountain weather, I think by far, is during a monsoonal pattern. When you have absolutely very light to no steering flow, that if you have a cell that develops over you, it's not going anywhere. It's going to dump buckets and buckets and buckets on you. It's very different from an upper level feature or a front that's sweeping through the Midwest. And you can, it's more easy to time the passing of your storms. You can't, in the Rocky Mountains and even the Sierra, you can't do that during the monsoon season. It's just like, you got to watch where they're developing and make an assumption that they're not going to move very fast. Is that any of that making
Absolutely.
sense?
No, those are huge things and things we need to all think about. And Jen's got a question for you real quick, Michael. And also, Michael, if you want to stay with us to the bitter end tonight, we'd love to have you, but there's going to be some recorded segments in a minute where if you got to run, do something, that'd be a good time, but we'd love you to stick around to the end of the show if you want to. But Jen, you hit it.
I will stick around. Bill, can you define the bitter end?
Well, that's kind of anytime between now and 10:35 Central when James comes back from his recording. So we'll probably be done a little earlier tonight, probably about 10 till 10 or so, because we're all pretty tired.
because at this age, something that happened the other day could be, or something that happened recently could be anytime between yesterday and 15 years ago.
I feel your pain.
Yeah,
It's right.
yeah, and I'm sorry. I know you had a question.
I do. I'm going to have you go back recently or in the past, however far in the past you want to go, and tell us what was your favorite adventure spot. Think you can narrow it down for us?
My favorite adventure spot?
Yeah, wherever you went, that was your favorite adventure where you got the best pictures, or you just had, however you want to define it.
Wow. So I have worked Denali National Park on a professional photographer's permit for over 20 years. And just being out there west of Eielson Visitor Center out to Wonder Lake is like one of the most magical locations that I can ever think of. I mean, it's kind of like my happy place. A place where I probably spent more time than anywhere else in the backcountry has been the Grand Canyon. So the Grand Canyon, 95% of the people who go to the Grand Canyon never go below the rim. And it is so huge, and there are so many different climate zones there, and there's so much to see. I have done 17 backpack trips there since 2005. Lori's been with me on all of them. We have oared the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon in the winter of 2001, and we're going back again this October. I have a river launch permit for October 31st. So magical pictures have come from that location. And another place that is magical for different reasons, not necessarily weather related, is Zion National Park in Utah. It's a place that most people see just from a tertiary glance, driving the roads, going to the viewpoints, but there are so many hidden canyons in there. And it's just an absolute gem. There are so many magical places that most people would never find. One of those hikes in particular is called the Subway. It's a very difficult hike. If you approach it from one direction, it requires swimming in very cold water. It requires rappelling with ropes and harnesses and down climbs. But some of the most magical photos come from there. And it's completely opposite from Denali. Denali is on a scale that's unimaginable. It's like just hundreds of miles of pristine terrain all around you. So it's this big, expansive, panoramic environment where slot canyons in Utah are this intimate, you're in your own little world, while the world of traffic and cities is, 5 miles from you, and you're in your own little world. And those hidden slot canyons in the Southwest, they're not just in Zion, they're in northern Arizona, they're all over the Colorado Plateau. They afford photographers magical light in the middle of the day when the light is really harsh on the landscape, because you're getting reflected light. You're getting light that's sunlight hitting some warm colored sandstone wall. And then that light is the light source for this ethereal glowing light that you see in Antelope Canyon, in the Zion Narrows. So there's that. So I like water, and I really like water in the desert. So I guess maybe that's why Zion, Virgin River, Grand Canyon, Colorado River, just that contrast between blue-green water and parched surrounding terrain is really visually exciting.
So in the weather business, we have chaser convergence, like tonight in Kansas. Do you ever have photographer convergence where all you guys are at the same spot at the same time trying to get this magical photograph?
Oh, jeez. No, that never happens, James. Speaking, Bill spoke of going to Telluride. Well, on the way to Telluride from Montrose and Ridgeway, you go up over a mountain pass. It's called the Dallas Divide. Mm-hmm. And there's a $1 million view of the Sneffels Range from there. And the foreground is all Gamble Oak and aspen, and it turns just brilliant colors in the fall. You go there on the last week of September, and you will find 100 tripods and photographers out there. You will find that at Oxbow Bend in Grand Teton National Park. You'll find 100 photographers lined up. You will find that at popular bear viewing places. You'll find that in the fall in Acadia National Park in Maine. Oh yeah, there's definitely, and the Instagram world is making it even worse.
And in every square inch of Yellowstone in July. Yeah. Yeah, no, that brings back so many good memories. What you were talking about there, Michael. But at least they're all not driving 80 miles an hour trying to keep up with the storm. So that's one good thing.
Yeah. Jen, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you sure did. That was great. Well, and I love this. I made one cross-country trip many years ago and got to see some of the spots, but there were so many areas I wanted to go back to. And I'm adventurous just in terms of I want to travel and see things, but to do what you do is just amazing, to do the rappelling and to do all that. And I am not one to go take, everything on my back and go hike in. And, I want air conditioning in a cabin, or I need something over my head, so I'm not as adventurous, but I think it's amazing what you do and that you teach folks how to do this. And I was looking at your website earlier. Your pictures are amazing. I mean, folks need to go to your website. Please plug your website, because your photos are amazing, and you really do capture the lighting and everything so perfectly. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's just my name, michaeldeyoung.com.
Yeah.
And then that's my commercial website. And then from there, you can go to the other one, which is Active Photo Tours. That's my photo workshop and guiding. And I think that meteorology and just has had a huge influence on the way I approach and use light. And people always ask me, James was talking earlier about saturation and everything. And people ask me, are you post-processing your pictures to get this look? And I keep telling people, no, I'm just knowing what
You're pre-processing them.
Yeah, pre-processing. Thank you. Yes. It's pre-production. It's scout. It's just knowing this is where I need to be and when I need to be there, because I'm reasonably assured that the forecast is going to be accurate enough where it's going to produce the look I want.
So Jim, when I'm looking at the trail books and it says easy, moderate, difficult, we're just swimming through cold water, and what is that? Like off the scale?
It's not on my scale at all.
Well, you wear protective clothing. I mean, you wear a wetsuit or a dry suit if you have to.
No,
No.
No,
no,
not interested.
that's okay.
Me
No,
either.
I might put my feet in the water and just
Yeah.
hang out there and, look at everything around me.
So James, didn't mean to interrupt you. You take us to the finish line.
I got to ask this question because so many professional photographers have this issue. It seems like to me that people steal their work and pirate these photographs without paying for them. They use them for their own purposes. Is that a problem for you, Michael, or for people that are photographers? Is it as bad as it seems?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, you're opening up a lot of can of worms.
That's the reason I'm here.
That's
the can of worms guy.
absolutely. Yes. And it is worse. I told myself tonight, I'm not going to say anything bad about people, so I won't do that. I'll just say it's getting worse, particularly with younger people. Like people are not educating themselves on copyright. So to give you a 30,000-foot view and just a very brief summary of the law, anyone can copyright a picture. If you take a picture with your phone, you own the copyright to that. But you don't have any legal remedies unless you register that copyright with the US Copyright Office. So for many years, I have done that. It is a pain in the neck. It costs money, but I have registered thousands and thousands and thousands of my images that have gone to stock photo agencies that market my work. So stock photo agency would just be like a retail store. It'd be like Walmart or Sears, except instead of hard goods, it's intellectual property in the form of visual content. So I have thousands of pictures out there. They're registered, and we are contracted with a tech firm that crawls the web for my images, and they have a legal team, and we go after people. I don't tolerate that. We don't go after the college kid who's stealing it for his blog. We go after commercial businesses who steal your imagery for the purpose of promoting their brand, their services, their products. It's a real thing. And smart photographers go after these people. And it's not fun. It's not pleasant, but it's just, it's something that's necessary. And unfortunately, it's something that just gets worse with time. So
yeah, I think about it all the time because people send me pictures all the time, and it's mostly Joe Q public with their phone, but occasionally you'll get photographers, and I have to be sure, you sure I'm going to use this because I don't want to get in trouble with them, but they're typically younger photographers looking for exposure. And if they get some people with big social media numbers, they get exposed, and that's what they're looking for. But I'm very cognizant of that. And the last thing I want to do is take anybody's work and use it without permission, and that's just a big problem today. So I know that I've heard that from many people.
You know how lawyers are, that there's a out, so to speak, in the copyright world, and it's called fair use. And fair use is vaguely defined for a reason. So if someone sends you a picture and you are simply showing it during a newscast, I am not sure that's an infringement because you're not promoting you, the station, what have you. It would be no different than like if my picture was on the cover of a magazine and you said, hey, look at this picture on the cover of the magazine. You're just showing it to people. So I don't know that you're really doing what you think you might be doing. I think it's a good idea to always check and see if the author of the photo is really the author of the photo, but as long as you're not.
Yeah, that's the thing that drives me crazy because these people will steal material from somebody like you and then they claim it's theirs.
Oh, that's
I took this
bad. Yes.
I took this photograph this evening in Arizona,
Okay.
and I want you to show it on television tonight, where they had nothing to do with it. Why do people do this? What's the matter with these nitwits?
I know, that's crazy. I'm sorry. I thought maybe someone was just sending you a photo saying, hey, Mike DeYoung took this photo of a supercell, show it on the TV. So they're claiming that work. They're claiming that someone else's work is their own for their own self-promotion. Well, that's boneheaded. That's just
Yeah,
stupid.
it's horrible, and it's gotten really bad. And then they'll take pictures that, like, here's a tornado in Kansas tonight, where it was actually taken by some guy in Nebraska 22 years ago. Has nothing to do with what happened in Kansas tonight. So we got to sort through all this stuff and see what's legit and what's not legit, and it's very problematic. But,
I see ads for ski areas from pictures that were shot at other ski areas.
Yeah, oh, it's bad. So real quick, we got to do a quick break here, Michael.
Okay.
Before we stop, you're the greatest weather photographer in the history of mankind. But other than you, do you have any favorite weather photographers that you look up to?
I have favorite photographers, but I don't know of any.
Or photographers, periods, in general.
Right. So there's two that I really like that have influenced my work. One of them is a nature and outdoor photographer. His name is Art Wolf, and he's from Seattle. And I think he's had his own TV show on the Weather Channel, Photos from the Edge. And the other one is not a nature photographer. He's a street photographer from New York. He's Jay Maisel. He's an old pro. And I love his use of color and style and the way that he really looks for an image and makes photography about everything else but the camera. And for historical photos, I've always liked Edward Curtis, who was a photographer that photographed the American West and Native peoples.
You know, and again, I see some of their work, and it's just absolutely stunning to me. It's almost like a God-given gift. I don't think you can teach some of this stuff, the way people shoot these pictures. It's just really remarkable. And maybe you can learn it, but goodness, I think some of it's just, they were born with it.
Yeah, there's definitely innate talent involved, but I would push back and say, you could teach people lighting and you can teach people design. So for example, Art Wolf, I think he's got a degree and professional experience in graphic design. And to me, it really shows in his photos. His photos are just they just make so much more sense. They're just so much more balanced and colorful. They just have leading lines and framing and all their kinds of design elements that are common throughout good, solid design. I mean, you can just see it in his work.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break here. And Michael, I'm going to warn you, before the show is over here in a few minutes, you're going to have to come up with a pick of the week. This is something related to weather, or in your case, it can be related to photography. This can be a website, hardware, equipment, whatever. So be thinking of a pick of the week. And let's pause quickly for Tony Rice and the Astronomy Report. We've got Jen's This Week in Tornado History. We'll come back with Weather Roundup, picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
Well, it's eclipse season again. This approximately 35-day long period where at least 2 eclipses will occur, and possibly 3 if that first one's early enough. The current season is centered on June 1st and features a total lunar eclipse this Wednesday. More on that in a moment. And an annular solar eclipse on June 10th. More on that in a future WeatherBrains episode. The last season centered on December 11th, 2020, but was a bit anticlimactic. It included only a penumbral lunar eclipse in November, which are barely discernible, and a total solar eclipse in December that crossed South America, but that was largely spoiled by clouds. You see, eclipse seasons are separated by about 6 months, so we've got the next one to look forward to near year's end. It's centered on November 23rd and will feature an almost total, yet still technically partial, lunar eclipse on November 19th, which will be visible from all of North America. This will be followed by a total solar eclipse visible by penguins and whoever else finds themselves in Antarctica. But back to this season. On Wednesday morning, the moon will pass through Earth's shadow before daybreak, producing a total lunar eclipse. The bad news is that those north and east of Baltimore, Maryland will pretty much see nothing. The moon will have set before the partial phase even begins. Others in North America will see at least some portion of the partial eclipse. The further south and west you are, the later the moon sets for you, and the more the eclipse that you'll be able to see. For those west of Louisiana and a line extending up through the northern Rockies, you'll get to see the entire total portion of the eclipse before moonset. This is the first total eclipse visible from those western states in about 2.5 years. Your best view of the eclipse, no matter where you are, will be an area with a clear western horizon. I look forward to photos from California, Oregon, and the Washington coastlines. If you're watching the eclipse closer to the horizon, be sure to look for the squished effect that the moon gets as light passes through the thickest parts of the atmosphere. Now is also a good time to look for those solar eclipse glasses that you tucked away after 2017's Great American Eclipse. June 10th's annular eclipse will be best seen by logging and mining camps of northern Ontario and Quebec, and along the line that extends up over the North Pole into extreme Russia. But mid-Atlantic to northeastern states, along with upper Midwestern states, will see a partial eclipse at sunrise. So be sure to have your solar eclipse glasses ready. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokey for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history. Per the Storm Prediction Center database, there have been 6 F5 or EF5 tornadoes observed since 1950 in the state of Iowa. The last one hit on May 25th, 2008. This massive tornado, which eventually grew to over a mile wide, began near the Butler-Grundy County line, just to the south of the Applington area at 4:48 p.m. Central Time. Within 8 minutes, the tornado had grown to almost 3/4 of a mile wide as it moved into the southern end of Parkersburg. A third of the town experienced tremendous damage. At 5:09 p.m., the twister moved just north of New Hartford, causing structural and tree damage. It weakened east of town and traveled into northern Blackhawk County, staying north of Waterloo and Cedar Falls. During this time, significant straight-line winds were produced from a larger rear flank downdraft just south of the tornado track. A wind gust of 93 miles per hour was measured at the Waterloo Airport. North of Dunkerton, the tornado strengthened once again and reached its maximum width of close to 1.2 miles. Significant damage occurred to a farmstead in this area. At least 627 homes were damaged along the path, and this does include 288 homes destroyed in Parkersburg. An initial survey team was deployed the day after the tornado at 10 a.m. Over 40 damage indicators were identified during the survey, and in parts of Parkersburg and New Hartford, low-end EF5 damage was discovered. We have a detailed premium summary on this event. Become a member of our website at tornadotalk.com. Calling all weather enthusiasts. Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band at amsweatherband.org. As an AMS Weatherband member, you'll get to go behind the scenes with the scientists of the American Meteorological Society, whose members have been at the forefront of weather, water, and climate research for over 100 years. You'll learn about the very latest research from the scientists who are actually doing it. What's more, you'll become a part of a passionate online community of weather enthusiasts. Get access to exclusive videos, webinars, and other fun content, and support the science you love. Learn more and join the band today at amsweatherband.org.
Well, we do hear Jennifer talk a lot. That's because she has a voice like a basket of warm kittens, right?
Oh,
Nate,
wow. Thank you.
Nate's gone now. I can't call on Nate.
Well, he may not agree.
But
basket of warm kittens. Well, she's got a basket of warm kittens running around.
We've seen the tail a few times tonight.
And that is the show title for this week.
We do thank the AMS for their support of the show and encourage you to join the Weather Band for a lot of cool benefits. We also thank Midland Radio and Bruce Jones for their support of the show. Bruce is, of course, the official international ambassador of Noaa Weather Radio. If it's not official, we're going to make it so, Bruce. But, next week we're going to be talking about Joplin. That's going to be another hard show. Tonight was a fun show. We've had a lot of hard shows lately. We're going to be talking about the 10th anniversary, which is, upon us. We'll be a little bit after it. But, a lot of hard lessons are going to be talked about that night. But Noaa Weather Radio was right there working in the middle of the storm that night, that Sunday afternoon, late afternoon in Joplin, Missouri, when our deadliest tornado in a long time happened.
Yeah, it was. There were 2 tornado warnings issued. One of them was for north of Joplin near Carl's Junction. Then immediately thereafter, a second tornado warning was issued for the tornado that developed just out to the west of Joplin. And, since then, Keith Stammer, the emergency manager for the city of Joplin, has put up his own Noaa Weather Radio transmitter there in downtown Joplin. Jasper and Newton counties were kind of, if you lived on the west side of the county, you listened to one transmitter. If you lived on the east side of the county, you'd tune into another one. And Keith fixed that. He got his own Noaa Weather Radio transmitter right inside Joplin. So now the whole area is completely saturated by real strong NOAA weather radio signals. And I was just down in Joplin, I guess, last Thursday, and I can tell you that there's a lot of people down there who take the weather a lot more seriously now, and they have multiple and redundant ways of getting their warnings. So, we learn from all of these experiences, and hopefully we learn these lessons and move forward. But I'll tell you one thing that I heard down there, and I hadn't heard this before. I talked to the facilities manager from St. John Regional Medical Center, and he told me something interesting. He said after the tornado hit the medical center, first thing, it took the air conditioning unit off the top and dropped it down on their backup generators. That was problem number one. But then they had a gas main that was broken on the east side of the building. They had an oxygen feed line that was broken on the west side of the building. So they had these enormous leaks of natural gas on one side and oxygen on the other. And you can imagine what would have happened had they combined and there'd been a spark. But anyway, we'll talk about that next week. It was a massive storm, and I've never seen anything like it.
The backbone of those redundant systems for almost everyone in this country needs to be a NOAA weather radio. And you've got a special offer for listeners of this show that would like to get one.
Absolutely. And, hurricane season starts here in just a matter of days. So one of these emergency crank radios is a great thing to have because it represents 5 of the items that you should have in your emergency go kit. AM radio, FM radio, weather radio, a flashlight, and the ability to recharge your smartphone by cranking and generating your own electricity. If you use the promo code SPANN25, that's SPANN25, you get 25% off when you order at midlandusa.com. Also, I'd like to remind you that if you're a fan of WeatherBrains, please spread the word on the NOAA Weather Radio Network. The National Weather Service runs 1,033 transmitters in the U.S. states and our provinces, or our territories, and the Canadians run them in their provinces, I should say. And these devices work so well, and they give you official information immediately as soon as it's issued. So we need to remind everyone to have multiple and redundant ways of getting these messages because any system can go down in a storm, and you need to have those backups. There's a lot of times where you may not be paying attention to one form of alerting, and the other one will get your attention. So please help us spread the word. The NOAA Weather Radio Network is America's official alerting system, and it's operated by our friends at the National Weather Service who do a wonderful job 24/7, 365.
All right, James Spann.
One more time, Bruce. I was going to say this has nothing to do with cell networks. This is an independent RF network that is extremely reliable because I still hear to this day, Bruce, somebody will say, well, my cell phone coverage is not good at my house. That's not going to work. It's a whole different network.
Yeah. And, it's funny. I live in a major metropolitan area, and there's times driving to work or from work or even here in my basement at home where for whatever reason, my cell phone kind of clicks out. So that's an important point, James. And thanks for mentioning this is a radio-based radio alerting network run by the National Weather Service called NOAA Weather Radio. It saves lives.
And again, if you're a weather weenie and if you have one, be an evangelist. Go tell your neighbor, your mom, somebody in your family that doesn't have one, or buy them one. If you're a realtor, buy a new weather radio for every home that you sell, every family that moves in. It's just a great thing to do because that is absolutely critical. All right, weather roundup real quick. Where we are, it's hot and it's going to stay hot until October, and that's about it down here. Jen, you've been dealing with tornadoes in Kansas. If things settle down out there tonight?
Things have settled down. There's still there were a few severe thunderstorm warnings out there, but the big story was off to the northwest where we did have some damage from a tornado. It was in the Selden area, and so still getting actually it was a really huge tornado. I'm seeing some of the photos coming out, multi-vortex, and it did cause some damage. There have been some gas leaks as well from that. So I was on the air in Hayes, Kansas for some of the storms out in that area. Here in Ohio, it's been warm and toasty. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt to hide the fact that I got a little sun this weekend, maybe a little bit too long out, and did not follow my own meteorological advice. And was out a little bit too long, so I got some sun. But we're supposed to get actually a little cool here. We're going to go from upper 80s to maybe 70 for the high on Friday. So we get some of the storms finally coming in and some fronts coming in to bring in a cooling trend by Friday, which I love. This is great.
Yeah, the good news is the chaser divergence index is now maxing out in southwestern Kansas. You can see them all scurrying back to their homes now.
They're done. Yep, that's how we know we're
Done
done.
for the day.
Yep, you got it.
And again, Kim had to run to put little one to bed. And let's see, Nate, are your little ones to bed?
I haven't heard them, so I don't know. I assume so. My wife and I have just because of where the kids are and everything. I wind up taking responsibility on Monday nights for the littlest one, who's 2.5, and she does not. Some nights she goes out like a light. Other nights like tonight, it's dance party time. So tonight was a dance party, and we had to calm that down. But 45 minutes later, she finally goes to sleep. Talking about the weather around here, it's going to be warm, like you said, hot until October. I think is about the way it is. We had a first 90-degree day here yesterday, first one in 260 days. And it'll feel like 260 days before we get down below 90 again. So I'm ready for October. Let's bring it on.
Bruce, what's happening up in your world? You're always in an interesting zone this time of the year, late May and early June. Things can shake and bake up there.
Yeah, and James, we tied our record for 10 days in a row of measurable precipitation. Today was day number 10. And tomorrow, I'm just looking at the models. The grid interpolations show us with more rain for tomorrow. So it looks like we'll set a record of 11 days in a row of measurable precipitation in Kansas City.
For any month or for the whole year?
I think for the whole year.
Wow, that's a substantial record.
Yep.
Michael, what's your weather like out in the great Southwest United States?
Today was clear blue and 72. So
Clear blue and 72.
In the past week, we got about an inch of rain, very badly needed rain. So we live off grid, so we get our water from rain catchment. So our cisterns are happy, they're filling up. But it looks dry. We might hit our first 80-degree day of the year on Memorial Day weekend.
So where are you in New Mexico, Michael?
Taos, we're at 7,000 feet. We have seen it freeze here on the 10th of June.
Wow.
In the morning. This is a place where we can normally see anywhere from 40 to 50-degree temperature spreads per day.
Dry air.
Dry and dry. And I'm learning through friends and neighbors that northern New Mexico might be becoming one of those more desirable places to live because we have a rather benign climate here. We have 4 evenly spread seasons. We don't see hurricanes. We don't see Texas-style heat waves. We don't see crippling blizzards that you get in the high plains in Denver, Cheyenne, places like that. Yeah, it does snow here in the winter, but I mean, anything over 6 inches is rare. We don't see severe weather. We're just a little bit too far west, and we're blocked by a chain of very high mountains that keeps Gulf of Mexico moisture east of us. So we don't really see severe weather here, even though we do see an active monsoon season. Everybody who lives here is hoping for that because we don't want a kind of wildfire season that we might get if it stays as dry as it has been. Fingers crossed. So far, there's a few fires that have broke out in southwest New Mexico, but nothing here.
All right.
And your housing values just spiked 35% just after that little pitch.
And you don't have 75-degree dew points either. I've got to go to I got to go to Studio A real quick. Again, we'll do an email segment. Aubrey had to run, but we'll do an email segment next week. But I guess you guys saw that note from Brian Smith concerning the tornado emergency. We need to get Brian and Rich Thompson on the show here, Bill. I'm going to charge our guest booking officer to get our friends Brian and Rich from SPC on here and talk about this tornado emergency thing. That's interesting to me. But anyway, real quick before I got to go, I'm going to do my pick, and I've got to step into studio over television. I've really not had a chance to use this. Have you guys used this Warn on Forecast system from NSSL that's in operational use right now? It's like an HRRR ensemble, and it's kind of gridded for where the storminess is going on here. Very interesting. And I have not used it, but anyway, that's my pick of the week, and the link will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. So Bill, take it and go.
Thank you, James. Let's continue with those picks of the week. Nate, I'll start with you. What you got for us?
So the folks at the OU Center for Risk and Crisis Management do a periodic survey, and the report for the most recent survey will be out shortly. Not out yet. The data are available if you want to go, and we'll have a link to that on the website. But one of the things that came out from that earlier today was thanks to a friend of mine, Cody Berry at the National Severe Storms Lab, talking about participants, people who participated in the survey, their confidence in receiving a tornado warning when they were doing certain things, sleeping, driving, at work or school, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that they asked specifically about is like streaming content off of like Netflix or Peacock or Disney Plus or whatever. Do you feel like you would get a warning? And interestingly enough, plenty of people didn't think they'd get it if they were streaming. Not sleeping is probably the most concerning in the not at all confident they would get the warning category. Where a weather radio might help if you get one, because they're plenty allowed. But that was an interesting thing, and there's some other really cool stuff. There's a previous version of this report and the data that come out of it on the OU Center for Risk and Crisis Management website, and the new report should be out in a couple of weeks. But some really good stuff to sort of wrap your head around tornado warnings and other types of information and how people get it and what people do with it and that sort of thing. So,
yeah, we're talking, Nate, almost 70% of the respondents didn't feel confident at all that they could get a tornado warning in the middle of the night while they were sleeping.
Yeah.
That's scary. 70% nearly. Bruce, we got some work to do.
Yeah, we do. I still can't believe that we've been talking about NOAA Weather Radio. I have personally for 45 years now, and that there's still so many people who are not taking advantage of that system. It boggles my mind.
Yes, it does. Span 25 will take care of that. Just get one right away. Bruce, you always have a great pick of the week for us. What you got for us this week?
Well, tomorrow is the 66th anniversary of our worst tornado in Kansas, the Udall, Kansas tornado of 1955. And the Wichita Eagle newspaper has some nice articles that they let you read for free on that they've done in the past about it. But it struck around 10:35 at night, and people had gone to bed after the evening news. Evening news didn't really cover it very well. Didn't understand the threat that was coming up out of Blackwell, Oklahoma. And so, again, one of those tornadoes, we learned a lot of lessons thereafter. And I do believe it was in the aftermath of the Udall, Kansas tornado that Cowley County started some of the first Skywarn groups, Skywarn training sessions.
Outstanding. Next year will be the 20th anniversary of the La Plata, Maryland tornado. And somebody wrote me today, and I thought I just need to refer you to the last several WeatherBrains, because they were saying, that the Weather Service dropped the ball and, different things went wrong. And, and I just had to take issue with the whole process, at that point and point out some very important things, because our friends at the National Weather Service in the warning seat are sitting on a razor's edge, balancing between false alarm ratio and POD and trying to achieve lead time. And so, I just, when you stop and you really look at this issue, it's not a binary type thing. And I know we're all working on that, and nobody's working harder than the men and women of the National Weather Service. And I thought that was something that we needed to say tonight. Something else I need to say tonight is that WeatherBell is discontinuing Simu whips, one of my favorite products. So we're going to have to get Mark Taylor and see if there's any way we can salvage Simu whips. Nobody else in the universe may use it, but it's one of my favorite.
Are they
weather products?
Pulling it off, or are they replacing?
Yes, June 30th, they're discontinuing it, Nate. So hopefully we can talk Mark Taylor and our good friends at Weather Bell out of doing that. Maybe if you got a little extra money laying around, go and throw it at I guess don't throw it, because then you'd have to get a refund, but let's make sure we can get it restarted again. Maybe a crowdfunding source there, Jen.
Yeah.
Something we can get going, because I really do love Simulate Whips. Another thing I love is Tornado Talk, their premium features. Jen, I know every week something cool. How did the Joplin talk Zoom call go the other night? I sure hate I missed it.
Yeah, it was awesome. Nick and Nelson did a great job. We watched a video about Joplin, and then they took us through statistics, 10 years later, some quotes. Nelson had some amazing satellite, and he zoomed in and showed the different buildings. We showed different clips. They did just a fabulous job, and we had a lot of interaction. Troy was on there because he's a member, and Lon Curtis is a member as well. And they both contributed with comments and stories. So it was really great. And we left with a lot of momentum. If you're at that amateur tornado historian level, this is a perk for you that we will do these occasional Zoom calls and just have a discussion about a big event. And, I'm hoping we can get some folks on there who can kind of be like, an evening with whoever, with Bill Murray, and he can, tell us about his life, and we can ask him questions. Oh boy.
Yeah, that'll really bring in the viewers.
No,
there.
I think it would. And then I will tell you, we just finished, Nelson and I worked many, many hours on our Ringgold, Georgia and into Addison, Tennessee summary for the 2011 super outbreak. And it was emotionally exhausting, but we really poured our heart and soul into that. And we found out some amazing stories. And so we have an overview that's free on the website, so you can kind of get a sneak peek. But the two summaries it was going to be one summary. It's now three. The two summaries, the Georgia portion and the Tennessee portion, are premium summaries, and just kind of took that through. And that was the biggest one. I was living in Atlanta. It was the biggest one that went through Georgia. It was just heartbreaking, especially what happened in the Cherokee Valley. Once it came, and everyone thought that, well, the mountains are going to protect us. And we came to analyze that it may have actually enhanced it going through the valley the way that it did. So
I think we've seen that in Alabama on some of these big tornadoes that have come through valleys. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think about that every time I'm driving back down through that little part of Georgia that you hit on I-59 after Chattanooga, coming down from Knoxville, and some of those places were so hard hit. Mm-hmm. And there's a million picks of the week in what you just said, but did you have another pick of the week you wanted to highlight?
I actually do. It's actually another summary that's free on the website, because today's the anniversary of the Dodge City Tornado Fest from 2016. And then the next day was the Chapman tornado. And one of the guys who's really helped me a great deal on Tornado Talk, Brandon Molyneux, was actually out and chased both, and wrote a funnel feature, is what we call it, about his chase experience. So I wanted to highlight that, have folks go check that out. But he actually had the unique and wonderful opportunity to be with Tim Marshall with the Twirl program. And he was actually out there earlier in the month as well, launching probes. And so it was a great summary, and I wanted to highlight that.
Outstanding. Well, thank you, Jen, for that. I appreciate it. I'm going to take the foghorn tonight in preparation for next week's show, looking back at Joplin. We're going to have Doug Heady and Andy Foster. Am I saying Doug's name right? Doug was on the show once before. And
I've always heard it Doug Heady.
Okay, good. I'll maybe get it right next week, Nate. So maybe you can.
He can correct us. One of us is wrong.
Yeah, and I imagine it's me. That's my shtick, But
I just call him Doug.
Doug was on the show one other time talking about Joplin, and I don't think he got 2 words in because Span had been kicked off Facebook, and it was the crisis of all time. And I think we hashed most of it out that night. I went back to listen to what he said about Joplin, and I think the only thing he said the entire time was that he worked there. So we'll hear more from him, and that's going to be another tough show to get through, but a very necessary one. And Michael, I've stalled as long as I can for you. I know you got a great pick of the week for us. Anything that you can share that our audience could find useful?
Oh boy, well, you really put me on the spot. I don't know. I'm trying to draw on a blank.
Well, just give us your platform, because I think you're teaching a lot of folks cool stuff about meteorology, and that's very important.
Right. Okay, I'm sorry. Give you my platform.
Yeah, well, your website, whatever you bring people to learn about your webinars and your the teaching that you do in this regard.
Well, this summer I'll be spending all my time up in Alaska. Come back in early October, and from then probably pick up doing webinars, weather webinars for both photographers and adventurers. So I'll be posting any webinars that I'm doing on my activephototours.com website. I also teach for Arizona Highways. It's a long time magazine, and they have a nonprofit educational division called Arizona Highways Photoscapes. There'll be webinars there. That's pretty much all I can think of. Again, I spend most of my summers up in the far north. And for people that are into dual function things, I have a handheld VHF radio that I carry with me almost all the time. And of course, part of that is the NOAA Weather Radio channel. So I can get warnings, advisories, and marine weather. So if you live in a coastal area and you want a tool that serves double function, just remember that you can get NOAA Weather Radio broadcasts on a handheld VHF marine radio.
So you have your amateur license, Mike?
Do I have my amateur license?
Uh-huh.
No, but I don't use it to contact anybody. I pretty much use it for emergencies.
There you go.
And to listen to NOAA Weather Radio, because when I'm out in the water, sea kayaking or doing anything on the coast, I want to be kept up to date on marine forecasts as well.
So there's a few amateur radio call signs around this room. Nate, you got a cool one. What's yours?
WX4NSJ.
There you go. That's a good one. Bruce Jones, I know you have one.
KC0 Tango Whiskey Hotel.
Outstanding. Jen, you don't have one, do you?
I don't have one yet. No.
I don't. Mine
I
is
need to get on that.
Mine is KI4EBK. That's my amateur radio call sign.
What does that allow you to do?
Communicate in case of an emergency, and also storm spotting and chasing. I have a VHF radio back here too. I haven't pulled it out in a long time. I need to get out there and do that again. Need to get out there and chase. Have you ever storm chased, Michael?
No, because I've never lived in areas where storms are very exciting. So it's either Alaska, Western Montana, right? Or here in Northern New Mexico.
Yeah, you probably have to drive too far out into Eastern New Mexico to see some fun storms occasionally. Even
it'd be nice. Yeah, it'd be nice to catch some dry line activity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Here, I'm not too far from that.
And,
so next time.
And Nate, I've got a Buc-ee's brisket sandwich over here in my refrigerator. I finally got out there to Buc-ee's to see what was going on there.
You talking about the one in Leeds?
Yeah, the one east of Birmingham. That's right.
It's a thing. It's not the best brisket you're going to eat. It's not going to win any awards, but it'll scratch the itch, admirably. So.
And it'll keep 3,000 Alabamians entertained for a few hours every day.
When we drove through back in February, we drove through it, middle of it was still pandemic. A lot of stuff was shut down, but this place had just opened up, and you wouldn't have known, from the volume of people there, that anything was not happening. Because
and that's generally the case here anyway. But
the pumps were full, the building was full, but the bathrooms, they might be cleaner than mine here. How? They're just clean. So.
And Nate, I had some breaking news for you, because when you came through town, we talked about connecting rooms in hotels.
Yeah.
And I thought about you on Friday when Hilton announced on a call that they will be the first hotel chain to guarantee connecting rooms. So
Ooh.
your Hilton Honors membership just became a lot more valuable.
It did when now that I've got more people and it's interesting and not to turn this into hotel brains, but I think it has something to do with the size of the room, the number of beds, and the number of people that are allowed to be in a room based on whatever local jurisdiction. Because it seems like some hotels will let me book, in a double queen or a double queen room will let me with a couch, like one of these sort of junior
Right.
suite type deals. Will let me book my whole brood. I've got 4 kids total in one room, and other places they won't, even though it's the same number of spots. And I'm guessing it just has to do with the local jurisdiction and whatnot more than anything else. But yeah, that'll be nice to be able to have adjoining rooms with a little pass through, and because when little kids wake up in the middle of the night and want their mommy and they're in the room with dad instead, like, well, gotta find the key, go down the hall.
That's no fun. But coming soon to a Hilton near you will be guaranteed connected room available. And that's, like Nate said, it's 2 rooms with a door between them. So anyway, well, any other further business, Bruce Jones, before we break up this party tonight?
I was just going to tell you, the Marx Brothers, when they toured in vaudeville, they all used to sleep on one hotel bed. They just sleep crosswise.
Yeah.
They were a lot shorter back then, Bruce.
Yeah. But my kids could do that. They will fit, but they won't.
All right. Well, the WeatherBrains is the weekly netcast. It's all about weather. We love doing the show Monday nights. Now, next week we'll be here on Tuesday night because of Memorial Day on June the 1st. So mark that in your calendars. We'll be same time, though, 8 o'clock. And we'll be talking about Joplin, of course, at that point. But until next week, when we get together, I guest booking officer Bill Murray, as I always tell you, like Michael DeYoung would tell you, keep an eye to the sky because you'll always have something fun to look at. Michael, thank you. Great show. And I appreciate you being part of it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to meet all of y'all.
Yeah. Keep us posted on your progress and any news you got. We'll share it.
Okay. That sounds great.
All right, sir.
Bye,
Well,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being here. Have a good week.
Bye.
Talk to y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, 10:12 Central. Thank you guys for watching. Really fun show. Very interested in photography. I've always wanted to do that. I just don't have the time. One day I want to learn how to be a photographer or just take better pictures. I'll put it that way. So thanks to Michael for being on the show. We'll see you guys next Monday at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, right here. In the meantime, I got to go back and do some television. If you want to join us on Song of the Night, our nightly foolishness segment on Instagram, I'm SpanWX. So we'll be over there shortly.